Imagine standing on a frozen edge of the world where the silence isn't peaceful but terrifyingly heavy because you know that just a few hundred meters away, an iron giant is waking up from a restless sleep and preparing to march. This is the Narva River, the razor-thin line separating Estonia from the Russian Federation, and right now it is rapidly becoming the most dangerous place on Earth. But the question you have to ask yourself is, why would a tiny nation think it can stop a bear that has mauled empires? The answer lies not in building a wall, but in building a nightmare, a labyrinth of destruction so complex that stepping into it is easy, but getting out is impossible. Estonia has realized that trying to match Russia tank for tank is a suicide mission, so they have flipped the script of modern warfare entirely. Instead of blocking the enemy, they are inviting them in, creating specific corridors that look like weaknesses in the defense, open roads that seem to whisper "come this way" to Russian commanders. But is it really a weakness, or is it the mouth of a shark waiting for the scent of blood? The genius of this plan is psychological as much as it is physical because it plays on the arrogance of a superior force. Russian doctrine relies on overwhelming mass, wave after wave of armor and infantry designed to crush resistance through sheer weight. But what happens when that weight becomes the very thing that sinks you? The terrain here is a treacherous mix of swamps, dense forests, and soft soil that can swallow a 60-ton main battle tank whole if it strays just a few feet off the road. But can you imagine the terror of a tank commander who realizes too late that the road he is on is the only solid ground for miles and the bridge ahead has just been blown? There is no turning back. There is no maneuvering left or right. There is only the waiting crosshairs of a Javelin missile team hidden in the tree line. This strategy turns Russia's greatest strength, its massive armored columns, into its greatest liability, creating a traffic jam of burning steel where the rear guard can't advance and the vanguard is already dead. But how do you hide a trap of this magnitude from modern satellites and spies? That is the dark art of deception, burying thousands of mines and concrete bunkers under the peaceful veneer of nature, waiting for the day the ground shakes. The preparation is frantic yet invisible, a race against a clock that no one can see, but everyone can hear ticking. Every bridge is rigged to blow. Every highway is mapped for destruction, and every forest is being turned into a sniper's paradise. The world looks at the map and sees a tiny country next to a giant, but Estonia looks at the map and sees a chessboard where they have already set up checkmate before the first pawn has even moved. Are we looking at the future of warfare, where geography is weaponized more effectively than nuclear warheads? When the first boot crosses the line, the ground won't explode immediately because the true horror of a perfect trap is that it lets you walk deep enough inside to ensure you can never leave. This is the core philosophy of the Baltic Defense Line, a chaotic symphony of dragon's teeth, razor wire, and anti-tank ditches that stretches for hundreds of kilometers. But unlike the static defenses of the past like the Maginot Line, this fortification is alive. The genius lies in the bunker network that Estonia is constructing, which aren't just concrete boxes for soldiers to hide in, but integrated command nodes capable of surviving thermobaric bombardment. Why would they build 600 of these bunkers if they didn't expect the first wave to wash over them completely? The plan accepts a grim reality. Territory might be temporarily lost, but the enemy will pay for every inch with buckets of blood. Picture a Russian mechanized brigade pushing forward, feeling confident because they have breached the initial perimeter, only to find that the breach was intentional. They're now in a funnel, squeezed between impassable marshlands on one side and a minefield on the other, and that is when the sky starts falling. Estonia has integrated thousands of cheap, lethal drones into their defense grid, creating a swarm that acts as a localized air force that cannot be grounded. How do you fight an enemy that costs $500 to build but can destroy a $5 million T-90 tank? The psychological toll on the invading force is calculated to be devastating. Soldiers will be afraid to sleep, afraid to turn on their engines, afraid to even step out of their vehicles because the air is buzzing with the sound of death. The dragon's teeth, pyramids of reinforced concrete are not just scattered randomly. They are placed in patterns that force tanks to expose their weaker side armor to the hidden anti-tank teams. It is a brutal geometry of war where every angle is calculated to maximize penetration and minimize survival. But the most terrifying aspect is the use of Abadi defenses, entire forests filled with explosives to create instant, impassable tangles of wood and wire that sniper teams use as cover. A Russian unit could spend hours cutting through one barrier, losing men to booby traps the whole time, only to find another barrier 50 meters later and another and another. It is a meat grinder designed to stall the advance until NATO reinforcements can arrive, but there is a chilling question that haunts the planners. Will the reinforcements arrive in time, or is this defense line designed to be a graveyard for the defenders as well? The strategy relies on the concept of total defense, where every bridge, every barn, and every basement is part of the war machine. It turns the entire country into a weapon, blurring the line between civilian infrastructure and military fortification. Have you ever wondered what it feels like to be watched by 1,000 blinking eyes while you're marching into enemy territory? The technological layer of Estonia's trap is what separates it from any defensive line in history, turning the border into a digital panopticon where nothing moves without triggering an alarm. We are talking about seismic sensors buried deep underground that can distinguish between the tread of a tank, the wheels of a supply truck, and the footsteps of an infantry platoon from miles away. Before a Russian soldier even sees an Estonian defender, his position and his likely destination have already been transmitted to a HIMARS artillery battery parked safely in the rear. Why use 1,000,000 bullets when one precision-guided rocket can decapitate the enemy's leadership before the battle truly begins? This is the Kill Web, a system that links drones, satellites, and ground sensors into a single consciousness of destruction. The genius here is the denial of the fog of war. Russian doctrine relies on masquerade deception, but how do you deceive a sensor net that picks up your heartbeat? Estonia is effectively turning off the lights for the enemy while fighting with night vision goggles on. They're also preparing for the inevitable electronic warfare storm, burying fiber optic cables that cannot be jammed by Russian systems, ensuring that even if the radio waves are screaming with static, the orders to fire still get through. But here is the terrifying twist. The trap includes dummy positions, fake bunkers, and heat signatures designed to absorb expensive Russian missiles. Imagine the frustration of the Kremlin spending millions of dollars pounding a position, only to realize they have been bombing plywood and space heaters while the real firing positions remain untouched and silent. This economic warfare is just as deadly as the kinetic kind, forcing the aggressor to deplete their stockpiles on ghosts. And what happens when the enemy tries to use their own air power? The terrain is being seeded with portable air defense systems, creating a denial zone where helicopters and low-flying jets are swatted out of the sky like flies. The forests provide the perfect cover for these ambush predators, who can fire and relocate before the enemy pilot even knows he is locked on. It creates a feeling of claustrophobia, a sense that the walls are closing in from every dimension: ground, air, and cyber. Is it possible to break a sophisticated army simply by making them feel like they are fighting a ghost that can touch them but they cannot touch back? The integration of civilian cell phone networks into the defense grid means that every citizen with a smartphone is a potential forward observer, reporting enemy movements in real time. The terrifying efficiency of this system raises a dark question. In a war where algorithms decide who dies, is there any room left for humanity, or has the border become a fully automated slaughterhouse? Is this truly just a defensive line, or is it the spark that could ignite the powder keg of the entire European continent? The geopolitical stakes of Estonia's genius trap are so high that they make the Cold War look like a dress rehearsal. By fortifying this specific border, Estonia is effectively holding a knife to the throat of St. Petersburg, Russia's second most important city, which lies only a short march from the border. This proximity changes everything. It means that this is not just a shield, it is a threat, a signal to Moscow that any aggression will result in immediate and catastrophic consequences on their own soil. But there is a darker scenario that keeps generals awake at night, the Suwalki Gap. If Russia decides to bypass this trap and cut off the Baltic states from their NATO allies and Poland, Estonia would be isolated, turned into an island in a sea of hostile forces. That is why this trap is designed to be a porcupine, indigestible, painful, and deadly to swallow even if you are surrounded. The message is clear: you can swallow us, but you will choke to death on the spikes. This strategy of deterrence by denial is a gamble of historic proportions. It assumes that the Russian leadership is rational, that they will look at the cost-benefit analysis and decide that the price of invasion is too high. But what if they don't? What if the trap is sprung and instead of backing down, the bear lashes out with tactical nuclear weapons to clear the way? The fortifications are built to withstand conventional artillery, but nothing can withstand the sun being brought down to earth. This brings us to the ultimate question of the alliance, Article 5. If Russian tanks are burning in Estonian swamps, will Paris, London, and Washington truly risk nuclear annihilation to save Tallinn? Estonia knows it cannot rely solely on promises, which is why this trap is designed to bleed the enemy white independently, to buy time, to make the conquest so grueling that the Russian army collapses from within before they can declare victory. It is a strategy born of trauma, remembering the brutal occupations of the past and vowing never again. The construction of these lines is mobilizing the entire society. Conscription is up, defense spending is skyrocketing, and the mindset of the average citizen has shifted from peace to survival. They're not just building bunkers, they're hardening the national soul. As the concrete dries and the mines are laid, the border between Estonia and Russia transforms from a line on a map into the precipice of the unknown. We are watching a high-stakes poker game where the chips are human lives and the table is the future of Western civilization. Does the existence of this trap make war less likely by making it too costly, or does it make war inevitable by provoking the very paranoia it seeks to deter? The genius of the plan is undeniable, but in the chaotic madness of war, even geniuses can die.